I didn't hear it go away. It just came on a minute ago. Might be my system. Okay. See, I think we've got all four commissioners. Barry, Anna, anything we're missing? Anybody we're missing? And are we recording and transmitting? I'll look for that thumbs up one more time from. Okay, I think we're good to go. And with that, I will call this meeting to order.
Give us 1 second. You try relaunching it?
First of all, let's an audio check. Are we okay from an audio standpoint?
I can hear you.
Okay, I've got somebody's got an open mic and some noise in the background. So, well, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. Welcome. I'd like to call the August 5th, 2021 regular meeting of the Encinitas Planning Commission to order at 6:02 p.m. Please turn off your cell phones or set them to vibrate. And please also mute your microphone unless you're speaking. The agendas for this meeting are available online. And
Bruce, you just went mute.
is that better? Can you hear me now?
Hi, Bruce. I'm so sorry, but we are having just a little bit of technical difficulties. Can you give us just 1 minute?
Sure, I can.
Thank you.
It's just been delay. Yeah. I'll probably restart it.
Do we need to take a 5-minute recess?
I mean, it's recording. It's just being a little slow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's really easy to flash, I think.
Okay.
For the grandkids recording.
See how when I click here, it's supposed to show up here, and it's not.
Okay. So then do we need to pause in between each one?
Should we?
Look, see when I'm clicking here, it's not going back to this.
It's just giving like a delay.
Oh, there it is. Okay, we'll just know it's on a delay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. We're ready.
Okay. And do I need to start from the top or can I just go from where I was?
No, you're good. You can
Okay.
start where you left off.
So we have four of the, well, there are only four sitting planning commissioners right now. We currently have an unplanned vacancy in the Leucadia Planning Commission representative. So all four of the others are here. Next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. And if you'll join me, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I think we need the little bouncing ball to go along to keep us in sync, you know, kind of like karaoke. Let's see. So I don't know, Anna, are there any discussions on whether the next meeting will be a public meeting or not? I know the council went back and forth, or do we know when the public might know, or we might know whether it will be in person?
Yes, so the August 19th will be a virtual meeting, so it will not be in person.
Okay, so that's been decided.
Correct.
Okay, great. Okay, so with that, we are continuing tonight special arrangements for tonight's Planning Commission meeting due to the COVID-19 pandemic and pursuant to the State of California Executive Order N-29-20 and the amended County Health Order dated March 18th, 2020, which limits gatherings to no more than 10 people, members of the public will only be allowed to participate in meetings electronically. Tonight's meeting can be accessed and watched at the city's live webcast feed at https://encinitas.gov/government/agendas-webcasts. Normally, the Planning Commission is also available for viewing on Channel 19 of Cox Communications, Channel 24 of Time Warner Cable, and Channel 99 of ATT Uverse. Unfortunately, tonight, Cox, Spectrum, and ATT Uverse are unavailable due to the ongoing broadcast room renovations at City Hall. Public comments must be submitted via email. Tonight's agenda describes the process in detail, but I will summarize it. Written public comments to the Planning Commission must be submitted via email by 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting and will be forwarded to the entire Planning Commission. To make an oral public comment during the meeting, including oral communications, consent calendar items, or commenting on regular items, you must also register by 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting to join the electronic meeting. Members of the public speaking to the commission will not be shown on video. They will be able to watch, listen, and speak when called upon. Each speaker may address the commission for up to 3 minutes or in accordance with the time period established by the chair. The next item is oral communications. We start each meeting with oral communications where anyone wishing to speak on a topic not on tonight's agenda may request to do so by following the process previously described. Dina, do we have any oral comments?
We do. We have 4 speakers this evening. And first
Okay.
up is Gerald Kessler.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks. I would like to speak about the Staver project on Melba Road that is slated to put 31 homes on 6.6 acres based on the density bonus law AB 2345. This project will tear down a grove of mature Torrey pines and another 210 mature trees, along with tearing down the historical home built in 1938. It is also next to a rural horse farm and the last rural horse farm in Encinitas, a Boys and Girls Club and its garden, Oakcrest Middle School, and the Encinitas Community Center and Oakcrest Park. I recently learned that this property, which is adjacent to Oakcrest Park, is home to Berber nevimi, I can't even say it, which is a rare plant according to the expert at the San Diego Botanical Gardens. There are only about 100 of these species alone in the world. It's called endemic. I have also found out that the gnatcatcher have been seen at this park. This and many other wonderful attributes, such as the onslaught of endangered monarch butterflies that are swarming our neighborhood currently, makes it so important to preserve this beautiful plot of land for open space and some type of preserve, perhaps an annex to the botanical gardens. I've been actively in contact with both the city and the county to help our community preserve this land any way possible. And I would appreciate any assistance in saving this property from destruction. It is not meant for 31 homes. It should be looked at as open space for the Encinitas community. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Dan Vaughn.
Point of order before we move on.
Yes.
I see in oral communications in our agenda says that if we have 2 planning commissioners agree, we can request additional information from staff. And I've heard Ms. Kessler speak before, and I'm uncertain which project this is. And I would like to see if we could, if someone would agree that we could get information from staff on what is this Melrose project of 31 units. I don't remember this.
I think it was Melba, not Melrose.
Melba. It's still, it's I'd like to look it up, but I can't because I'm usually uncertain exactly which project we're talking about.
I'm
Don't need to
able,
have a discussion here, but I would like to know which project.
it's actually a project that's in process that will be before the planning commission once it completes its staff review.
Okay,
So it has not been before the planning commission.
okay, that's good, because I was concerned, kept hearing about this project, but I don't know it yet. Thank you. Apologize for the interruption.
Okay. So speaker two, is it Dan Vaughn?
Yes, please.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you, Dan.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Leeuwenhoek wildfire evacuation issue, and with regards to not only the Goodson project, but projects in general that we're thinking about coming out of Leeuwenhoek. I sit on the Community Wildfire Preparedness Planning Committee with members of the Fire Safe Council, CAL FIRE, Encinitas Fire. We've consulted with the Sheriff's Emergency Response Planning Group, the County Emergency Response Planning Group. The city of Encinitas has retained Fitch and Associates to help with technical consulting. These are retired CAL FIRE guys and fire chiefs from around the state. And as we sit through these meetings, it's very clear and very apparent that the wildfire evacuation risk is high here in Leeuwenhoek. And we're very concerned that as we plan new projects, that we're going to potentially adversely impact the evacuation. And so my request to the Planning Commission today is to direct staff to come forward with some serious evaluation of this and bring this to public, right? The Fitch and Associates report should be coming out this month. And so I think it's really important that we elevate this conversation to a public dialogue. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Yulian Ignatov.
My name is Yulian Ignatov. I'm a longtime Encinitas resident. On July the 15th, I joined and listened to the Encinitas Planning Commission hearing related to the Encinitas Apartments project, also known as the Goodson project. And I'd like to bring the following points to the Commission's attention, as well as make them part of the public record. Before the hearing, the Commission Chair, Bruce Ehlers, recused himself for concerns that he might not be
Julian, we lost your audio.
Yes, for some reason. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Sorry about that. Before the hearing, the Commission Chair, Bruce Ehlers, recused himself for concerns that he might not be sufficiently impartial to this case. It seemed strikingly unbalanced and unfair when moments later, Commissioner Steve Dalton disclosed his relationship with Mr. Goodson's attorney, while stating that they never discussed the project, hence he had no problem remaining impartial. Virtually every sentence from Mr. Dalton that followed was highly biased in one direction, that of Mr. Goodson's. Although Encinitas already had provided all of their technical studies to the city, staff chose not to disclose or analyze any of those reports. Rather, they selectively reported only studies provided by the applicant or commissioned by the city. Staff, the city, outside counsel, the Encinitas RD Council all stated that a finding of an adverse impact on the public health or safety would be grounds to deny the project. The wildfire evacuation risk that Dan just talked about to the public safety was presented by the Encinitas RD as well as the Leeuwenhoek Fire Safe Council, the Leeuwenhoek Town Council, the Rancho Santa Fe Association, and other public speakers. Specifically, Danny Neville, retired Rancho Santa Fe Deputy Fire Chief with 39 years of service and president of the Leeuwenhoek Fire Safe Council, testified, accepting a plan to place 277 apartments and 472 cars attempting to access the same roadway as our 5,000 plus residents in order to escape a fire is absurd. Encinitas RD has provided extensive evidence of numerous violations related to the Goodsons project, including the boundary adjustment creates an illegal parcel. The project does not qualify for use by right. The project has not complied with all applicable zoning requirements, including those associated with its inland bluff overlay status. Mitigation measures adopted in the environmental assessment for the fifth cycle housing element are not being adhered to. The project also violates Encinitas municipal code, including the Olivenhain Dark Skies Ordinance. Base density has been improperly calculated, including an undocumented and unwarranted inclusion of part of Rancho Santa Fe Road as part of the gross site acreage. In conclusion, it is critically important that all the information provided by the Encinitas RD to the city is reviewed and understood by all city officials involved in this decision. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, our final speaker is John Bilsell.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I would like to second what Dan Wan and Yolyan Ignatov just mentioned. I'm volunteering with a grassroots organization in Olivenhain. So last month we came in front of you with an issue of crucial importance to our community. More than 1,400 citizens support our group by giving whatever they can or volunteering their time. Our community has been preparing for your meeting last time for months. Fire safety experts, civil engineers, urban designers, traffic engineers, legal experts, and many others have spent months to prepare the reports that were submitted to you about, of course, the so-called Goodson project. Yet we left the meeting stunned and with a heavy heart. Experts who have worked months on carefully written scientific reports were given 2 minutes. Now imagine that. The fire safety expert had 2 minutes to relate to you a matter of life and death because of an unscrupulous development blocking Olivenhain's only evacuation route to the south. The lives of thousands of people, and not to mention, of course, horses and large animals, are put at risk. We thank Commissioner Kevin Doyle for reading the fire report, yet there was no other mention of it. We would expect the Planning Commission to consider in your deliberations the unmitigated danger to public safety and the public health. Another technical report that is crucial for the health and safety of our community is a LiDAR survey and a slope analysis that is submitted to you by a respected engineering firm. Olivenhain consists of a sensitive natural habitat and a historic landscape. It's also prone to catastrophic landslides. You know this. These natural slopes are under the protection of the city's hillside inland bluff overlay zone. Encinitas Municipal Code specifically gives you the responsibility to protect these slopes. So now it is impossible to know how much of these citizen-founded reports the Planning Commission has read and considered. In cutting the time allowed for public speakers and experts, you limited the citizens' ability to counter with facts the misrepresentations of a developer. To conclude, this is no longer about a particular project, but about restoring public trust in the process. It's not too late. On behalf of those who work so hard in Olivenhain, we wish to ask you to review and weigh the evidence that we submitted to you. Please ask experts questions and direct staff to follow up. I thank you for your service and leadership.
Okay. That was it.
Yep, that's it.
Okay. Let's see. The next item is changes to agenda. Are there any changes to the published agenda?
There are no changes.
Okay. And then the first up and next is the consent calendar. And these items are considered non-controversial or routine in nature. All consent calendar items are typically covered typically voted on collectively in a single motion without any staff presentation, public comments, or commission deliberation. However, if a member of the public or a commissioner has requested a consent item be heard, the item will be removed from the consent calendar and be given an individual hearing. Items removed from the consent calendar will be heard individually immediately after the consent calendar vote. Tonight's consent calendar is made up of one item. Item 6A, I'm going to try and get this right, Papian remodel, and it's permit multi 003486-2019. And this is a public hearing to request a design review permit, a coastal development permit to allow for the demolition of an existing unit and reconstruction of a new unit and the associated improvements as part of an existing fiveplex project site. The project is located at 222 Hermes Avenue in Leucadia. And Dina, do we have any public comments or anybody pull this item?
No, we do not.
Okay. And
I'm
Kevin,
afraid I would like to pull this item, please.
Okay, good. I was going to ask a question too, so there are two of us. I don't know if Susan or Steve had questions, but so we'll pull it and we'll hear it now during items removed from the consent calendar. So why don't we move straight to that? Do you need a staff report or do you have questions or what?
I feel a staff report might actually be in order. I have issues with the design of both the east and the west elevations, most specifically the east elevation that faces the street.
Okay, so I believe Todd, if you can go ahead and give the staff report.
Yeah, one moment, please.
Sure.
You're gonna have to share it first and then,
Yeah,
so yeah, exit out of here and then share and then pull it. You see it, yeah. Here it is.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So as you indicated, this is a design review permit and coastal development permit for 122 Hermes. It's an existing fiveplex site, and they're requesting to basically demo the first unit there in the front and basically reconstruct it to kind of modernize it and change up the look a little bit. This is the site in question here. So this is Hermes itself. This is the building in question that will be remodeled, and then there's an existing, essentially legal non-conforming fiveplex that is on the property. Pretty consistent with the area. If you kind of look around Hermes, Leucadia, on each side, you see a lot of these non-conforming existing multifamily projects that are basically within the R8 zone. This just kind of shows the photos itself. So right here is the site, just basically shown in context. You can see basically there are some flat roof buildings adjacent. This one has a mansard in particular. There's some lower single story, and then behind it, you can see in context some of the higher structures around it. Directly to the west, it abuts multifamily, so you can see there's a lot of different shapes and sizes of buildings essentially in this area. Here it is again in context, and as well as here it's looking east. That's just a close-up, so you can see basically the access, private drive to the unit to the back, and then here in the front. And so this basically shows the site planning itself. So this is the unit as indicated that's being demolished. And there's nothing really being redone to the units in the back other than paint and just kind of a facade enhancement. Basically, they're using a sand finished stucco for the main color. They'll have a kind of a secondary light stucco color, and then there's some dark gray and gray tone stuccos on the eaves and trim. There'll be some dark wood as part of the new building facade, and then new aluminum glazing glass. And then, as indicated, the rear units are just being basically painted and re-roofed to kind of match. There will be some new parking features as well as B&Ps added around the site here. And then there's a new trash enclosure for the complex that isn't really there today. And then as well as utilities, they're going to be improving the streetscape as well as doing impervious pavers there in the front. This is the unit itself, so you can kind of see the proposed floor plan, pretty open. Much really to talk about other than just this is the layout. You can see the kitchen, the living, the dining, bedrooms, etc. And then there's a second floor itself, the master, the staircase up. The lower, this is the roof plan itself, so you can kind of see the flat edges with the hip essentially in the middle. And then these are some of the lower sections of the proposed building's roof. These are the existing units in the back. No changes, so you can just see the floor plans and how they lay out. And then the second level there on those units in the back. And then there will be kind of significant landscape enhancements around the building, kind of screening it from adjacent properties and improving the frontage that is there or proposed. You can see essentially what's around the proposed footprint. A lot of this is existing, and then there'll be some new features here adjacent on the side there as well. And so this is the color concept itself. So as indicated, 2 tones of stucco. It's a modern look, you know, essentially similar as far as color tones, but different in context. And that's basically encouraged by the design guidelines to further differentiate structures on multifamily. So this is, you know, their attempt in doing that without, you know, completely remodeling the back, which wasn't really within their scope. And then this is essentially the garage size. You can see where they're accessing off the private drive. And then the rear elevation as well as the right elevation to the north. You can see kind of where the trash enclosure comes into where the existing buildings abut. Just more detail, just showing the siding that they're using, as well as the various colors of stucco. It's technically 3 tones. You can see the darker tone here on this trim. And that basically concludes our report. Staff's recommending approval. We're available for questions.
Okay, and I missed one step. If you let me go back, and are there any disclosures by the Planning Commission? It's like none. Okay. So, and now I'll open the hearing for public comment. Does the applicant wish to address the commission?
For actually Wagaman.
There we go.
There we go. No.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
But you're available hopefully for questions, because it sounds like there may be some questions.
Okay.
Yeah. So and we said we didn't have any public comments, so we'll start with Kevin.
Well, I'm going to ask Todd, can you jump to the second to last slide, the one that showed the sidings? Move. No, all the way to the end. Right there. Stop right there. This is the front of the house. The sides of the house are actually detailed rather interestingly, but this big flat slab with two dinky little bathroom windows glued into it is just offensive to me. This is, now, I know it's a design review and we're limited to objective standards. And I'm looking at architectural character and detailing, section 561. And it talks about the buildings should include sensitive architectural detailing and careful selection of materials, which this project does show. But it finishes with, although side and rear elevations may be less intensely detailed than the front elevation, some recollection of front elevation materials and detailing should be incorporated. Now, generally, the way I interpret this is that the front of the building that's facing the street, that's facing your neighbors, and there's the cars driving by is the most intensely detailed, and the sides can be less so. Whereas here, the sides are actually detailed rather interestingly, and the front is this bland, flat slab with no windows. I understand the kitchen is behind there, as is the pantry, and above is, I guess, just a couple of bathrooms. But I don't like this. I don't think this is appropriate facing the street for the reason I just mentioned. And that's pretty much all I have to say about this project.
Okay. Can I, Susan, go ahead.
Well, I can see the reason why they went with a flat roof, because the project site slopes upwards towards the front where this is. And so they're trying to fit in 2 stories in a location which topography doesn't exactly allow them to copy or duplicate what they had in the other buildings on the site, the sloped roofs. But despite that, it doesn't really, the topography is what it is. And it's probably why this project was 1 story initially all along, is because they don't have room to fit a sloped roof in 2 stories there. And so when I look at a non-conforming to our current code standard project that wants to perpetuate and exceed it, and then this would be brand new because they're demolishing the existing residence. My question would be, doesn't it perpetuate the nonconformity? Because buildings have a certain life. And if we build a brand new building, that life is most definitely extended beyond the original built nonconformity. So I'm not really clear on that part of it, but I have more. I also think, first of all, I want to give them a little shout out and kudos for their selection of plant materials. Good job on that. But in terms of the facade, what we're looking at in the current slide that's on the screen, wow. Okay, maybe you can get away with a flat roof if your facade would blend with community character better, but it really does not. It really, I don't understand in the staff report where it says that it is okay for design when it looks nothing like the surrounding area. I think, I mean, to me, it does not meet community character standards, because, and even the color scheme itself, I have a bit of trouble with the colors being this sort of checker look to this front facade. Not really what we see in the rest of the typical projects in the area or even on that same site. So I'm having a lot of difficulty understanding perpetuating the nonconformity and also the design review guideline being met. Those are my 2 initial thoughts.
Okay, Steve, go ahead.
Could someone clarify what the nonconformity is? Is this a nonconforming structure? They're allowed to build this building, aren't they?
Yeah, basically it's 5 units essentially in a single family zone. So that's the nonconformity. It's multifamily and a single family.
And if they voluntarily demolish one of them, they're allowed to replace it with continuing the nonconformity?
There's specific findings, as you'll see in the reso, but basically, one of them is that there are no additional negative impacts to the character of the neighborhood. So that's one of the things that you're bringing up. And then that the resulting design will not enhance the neighborhood and will not significantly increase the economic life of the nonconformities. You got to think of that as a whole. It's not just this one structure beyond that which would occur through normal maintenance practices, and that the building profile modification is necessary for protection of health and safety. And that's, the original structure was in 1929. And so that's kind of where the health and safety effect of what you saw originally there is what is essentially why they're demolishing it and reconstructing it as new as opposed to maintaining that.
The density. Density is the nonconformity.
How are they on the FAR? Are they allowed? The square footage is allowed?
Correct. Yeah, the FAR is fine, but just the density is different, right? The density, it's actually the multifamily, multifamily and a single family zone.
I guess this is directed to the commissioners, I guess. I guess the question I have is, how does replacing a single-story structure with a two-story structure not increase the nonconformity? I need to wrap my head around that some way.
So I want to hop in with a couple of questions. I also want to maybe get some clarification going. I think, Susan, you made a comment that they could not put a second story with a peaked roof on here. And Todd, I'd like you to comment on or explain whether it is possible, because I think the eaves edges are at 22, and can they put a peak? Could a peaked roof be on this building, this new building? Is there room in the height ordinance?
Potentially. I think you saw right there. I think it is at the 22 limits. You can see the dash line represented here. Sorry about the top there. It's hard to see, but basically you can see the envelope. So it's right at the 22. So a pitch potentially could be, because it's less than the 10% average lot slope here. So it could potentially be modified, just like the ones you see in the rear are pitched.
Correct. And so the middle of the pitch roof could go up to 24 feet, correct?
26. 26 would be.
26,
yeah.
Sorry, yeah, 26.
Yeah.
So I think I just want to clarify for Susan that for a flat roof, the limit is 22, but for a pitched roof, the edges, the eaves are at 22, but they can go up to 26 in the middle, and they could have a pitched roof on there. So that was one clarification. I'm trying to think, Susan, what was your other comment you made? I wanted to make sure Todd had a chance to respond to it. What was the second part of your?
Well, the front facade was my other comments were fairly similar to Commissioner Doyle's. And I think that it fails in terms of meeting design review guidelines because it doesn't match with the community character. It's a very, very different look than the other buildings on the site, as well as the surrounding buildings in the neighborhood. So no, it's not meeting design character in terms of, and the colors alone are, having this sort of checkerboard color look in that front facade, I'm looking at it again. We don't routinely see that there, and the other buildings don't have that.
Okay, so to kind of follow on to your comments, and then we'll come around to more discussion. I agree completely with you on the plant selection for the native plants. Phenomenal. That was a really nice set of choices for pretty much the front of the lot. Very drought tolerant, very local, Southern California. And then on the look, my initial reaction is similar to Kevin and Susan's. I personally don't like it, but I'll tell you, I tend to shy away from evaluating the look that much based on my framework, because that's my personal framework. And what I've found in the city of Encinitas, and I've done, sessions on community character over the last 20 years. And whenever we talk about eclectic, and we often talk about eclectic when it comes to Leucadia, I can never get a group to agree on what eclectic is. And I think that is the definition of eclectic, is nobody really agrees. So I'm not as, I don't find the front of the house attractive. I find the sides attractive or acceptable. I don't know what design review objective, I'm not sure what would trigger me to say vote no on it at this point yet. So I'm on the fence is the way I would put it. And it is not welcoming. And the one last comment, which is the flat roof. I think they showed an aerial where the neighboring property is also flat roof. So I don't think we can claim that the flat roof is not found all throughout Leucadia, especially right in this immediate neighborhood. I'm on the fence on the looks. And then the last item I would throw out is in page 17, Todd, it says the BMPs are not approved. And I just want to understand, what is the problem with meeting the BMPs? Is there something, why are they not approved, or why are they not accepted in the form that is drawn on the drawing? And what do you anticipate the applicant having to do to make that work?
It's just basic semantics. I mean, they'll have to do actual hydrology when they submit for the grading permit. So it's just the basic location. As you can see, I think on the landscape plan, it showed, they're generally kind of in this area. They kind of wrap around the side and go in the front. So it's just the general location. It's just the sizing needs to maybe be increased, but that's it. That's pretty standard with a grading permit plan check, is that it has to be sized to handle the flows.
And in this case, the flow is off the back of the lot. So there's a lot to lot flow that they have to meet.
Correct.
Okay. So let's see, Kevin or Steve, which one of you had your hands up first? Yeah. Okay. Kevin. Thanks, Steve.
Okay. I'm just gonna say again, it's like, honestly, if it weren't for this frontage with these two little bathroom windows facing the street, facing the neighbors, I would be willing to accept something here. But as this is proposed in front of me, I'm definitely going to not support this. And I think I'm using objective standards from our design guidelines. We'll be addressing this in more detail in the coming weeks, but I'm specifically for Todd or somebody. Could we pull up the design review guideline? Could I show 5.6.1 on screen? Is that possible?
Yeah.
I have it open here. If I could share the screen, if someone.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me just get it queued up right there. Okay. Okay. Is that working?
Yep.
And it's I don't know if it's a stretch or not, but I read the highlighted section that the front of the building, the part facing the street, should be more detailed than the side elevations. I thought the sides were kind of interesting. I like the big tall windows. There's a lot of things I like about this. I just really don't like that big front panel with two dinky bathroom windows facing the street. I think it's insulting to the neighbors. And I mean, if somebody says, hey, I'd be willing to jump in and change something there, I might be okay with that. But as it's proposed right now with no changes, I'm going to vote to deny. And that's it.
Okay.
If I can figure out how to do that.
I think Steve had his hand up next.
Thank you. I agree with your earlier comments, Bruce, that as an eclectic neighborhood, I accept that people have different tastes in architectural styles. So I don't have a problem with this house as it relates to other houses in the neighborhood. I agree that the front wall plane is pretty flat. I'd like to see a little bit of depth or offsetting planes between, say, the wood siding and the stucco on the ground floor. But I'm not sure that that rises to the level of denying deniability on my part from it. I guess I'm still a little hung up on the idea that this won't enhance the economic life or the nonconformity, and I don't quite understand how you take a single-story house and change it to a two-story house and not say that the economic life of that non-conformity hasn't been increased. But just as a point of discussion, I see that it was in the front setback and they've rebuilt it in compliance with the front setback. So I could see an argument that says, that they have diminished a nonconformity in the front by respecting the new setbacks. And I think that's of value. If there was a argument that said that the second story helped compensate for the loss of ground floor area, I would say that was probably a good trade-off in my mind to allow the second story. But I'm not sure what the numbers are on that, if that's truly the case or not. But as far as the roof pitches or the architectural style, I'm not concerned about that. I accept that neighborhoods will have a variety of different architectural styles.
Susan, do you still have your hand up? Did you want to speak?
Well, yeah, I do think that when we have codes like this that talk about not increasing the nonconformity, it's the lifespan, the economic lifespan. So this is a rental property, perhaps we'll say, or for sale or whatever it is. If there are 5 units that all generate income, let's say, and one of them is falling apart, okay, then the normal thing would be that we repair it, right? And that doesn't increase the economics of the project. The economic life wouldn't be increased by just simply repairing and bringing it up to, in terms of the life safety and health issues that impact it. So I'm still struggling with that. I can say, okay, I agree with you, Commissioner Ehlers, when you said that, okay, there's some other buildings with flat roofs. Okay, fine. So design-wise, maybe flat roof is okay. But again, the front of the building does not have the higher level of articulation, as Commissioner Doyle pointed out. I think it has enough issues that I'm uncomfortable with it. And I think it definitely will have a longer economic life, because not only is it going up a story, but it's completely brand new. And so they're demolishing something. So the fact that there may be some trade-off, as Commissioner Dalton pointed out, doesn't really sway me, because I'm looking at the letter of the code in terms of what the code says, which is the economic impacts aren't going to be perpetuated, and so are increased, and it certainly seems like it would be. So I'm just having trouble with this. I sure wish they would have provided it as simple, more of a simple remodel type of solution. If it is to the point that it has to be demolished, if it is so badly riddled with termites or whatever the reasons it had, maybe water damage, mold, I really don't know what the issues were that led them to the decision that it has to be raised down to the ground and completely, replaced with brand new. I don't know what their decisions were, but if that is the case, then what happens is it starts to become more conforming in general in terms of the number of units, and it starts to be conforming in general with established setbacks that the city has. And we maybe have more area for planting on the site, which is great. More area for off-street parking, perhaps. I don't know what that area would be used for if it's not rebuilt. But I have trouble with completely demolishing something that's I think it is going to, as a brand new 2-story thing, perpetuate and have a longer economic life for certain. So I'm having trouble with how do we want to view this, if we make an exception for this one, it will be for all projects like it, of its type. And I'm not saying it's a bad project. I actually sort of like it in terms of, the native plants and so forth. And so I think I've said enough that you get my gist of, yeah. I'm having trouble, feeling like it's a good, a thing that meets code.
So if there's nobody else, I'll hop in. When we look at the nonconformity, it is really a number of units on the lot that the density is higher than's allowed in this parcel. So it's really number of units. And so Todd, I assume the reason that the other 4 are not being touched is that if they were all redone like this, they could they raise them all and build 5 new units of approximately same size and shape and within setback? Would that be allowed under our pre-legal non-conforming law?
It's a little bit different for 5 or more. So we don't typically see these as often, but that's kind of those 2 findings of dealing with 5 or more. Units may be modified if the resulting profile does not result in a structure contrary to the section and the following findings are made, which are those 2, which is the negative impact of the nonconformity on the neighborhood, and then dealing with increasing the economic life and what would be necessary for protecting health and safety. So it's kind of those 2 findings. It's different than 4 or less, where you can do exactly what you're saying. You can replace it with new. Okay. 5 or more is a little bit different.
Okay. And so why is replacing one 100%, to the ground, not extending the economic life of the nonconformity significantly? I'll use the exact words. Will not significantly increase the economic life of the nonconformity beyond that of which would normally occur through maintenance practices.
I think it's the fact that it's the 1 of 5. It's not, like you said, it's not all 5. Okay. So it's not significantly changing. And then based on the year of the original house, I mean, it was deemed that it would be a health and safety issue. So it was kind of fixing 2 things at once, or at least that's how staff felt. And as he indicated, Mr. Dalton, the setback is now conforming, or wasn't. So it was kind of cleaning up that site, so to speak, and accomplishing this. So. Yeah.
And so I'm going to come down. You guys are going to like this because I'm going to agree with Steve. I like the fact that it improves the setback, and I think there's reasonable justification to allow the replacement of the 1 unit, not all 5, not 3, not 2, but the replacement of the 1 unit with the corrected setback nonconformity. However, the first finding, I think I'm going to side with Kevin and Susan, and I think that the fact that the non-conforming residential buildings of 5 or more may be modified if the resulting profile does not result in a structure contrary to this section, and the following findings are made by the authorized agency. And the first one is there are no additional negative impacts to the character of the neighborhood. And changing from that nice little 1-story proper front, it's got a lot of character to it, to a very blank monolith with little, I think Steve, you said, with little articulation, or it does not have a higher level of articulation, were your words. I agree with that. And I think that pushes me over the edge. I just want to see something better on that front facade that doesn't look like an afterthought presenting to all the neighbors. So I think because of this one, the one finding we have to make about negative impacts to the character of the community, and I think this is making a big negative impact on the current facade, the front facade, and that's really the bounds of my concern. Susan, you've got your hand up?
Yes, I have a question for staff. So we're going to let's say that we allow this project to move forward and they demolish the front unit and completely rebuild it. Next year, and they apply to demolish a second unit and completely rebuild it. A couple years later, they demolish a third unit and want to rebuild it, and so on. Would you allow that?
I think we would have to reassess it as a whole when each time they come in. So we do have our records of what has come in the past. So we would have to consider the previous action as they come in with the next one. And because it's a multifamily site, it would come before the planning commission.
And Susan, I think that's one reason when I look at that front setback nonconformance and they're eliminating it forever, that's the reason I'm willing here. I'd be willing to bet that, Todd, you can maybe give us a background on when the back units, the garage, and they were remodeled substantially is my guess, because those don't look like 1929 buildings. So I think what you described, we are not on step one, we're already on step 2 or 3, and they occurred 1980 or 1987 from looking at the plans.
Yeah, I think it was actually the 70s, but it was definitely county, but yeah, okay. They're there and that's when they were built.
Yeah. And so my personal viewpoint is that because it's solving one of the 2 nonconformances, I think that's good. But I don't want to result in having a very blank, plain, stark facade presented to the neighborhood on that front. And you know, it's not my job to figure out what it should be. Just I think it's a negative to the community character as is stated here. Susan?
Well then, if we already have allowed the non-conforming project to significantly remodel prior units, other units, as you say, and we already are on step 4 or 5 maybe of this project being this site, which was not conforming, being a complete demolition and a completely new building. I can see the benefit of conforming with the setback, sure, the front setback gaining more landscape area, but it clearly to me significantly increases the economic life of the nonconformity beyond that which regular maintenance would have done. Now, when you look at a project, you look at a house like this, there are 5 dwellings there, right? If there were not deferred maintenance happening routinely on these types of projects, if maintenance had been regularly performed, the demolition wouldn't have been necessary. I'm sorry, but I don't see the logic of it not increasing the nonconformity, the economic life of the nonconformity. The whole purpose of that clause is to prevent buildings from indefinitely existing with nonconformity. So it's just, I mean, gosh, you know, I've been turned down on projects when I worked for firms for just this kind of thing where that was, no, you cannot do that. No, you can't remodel more than 50% of it even, or, you know, many restrictions apply in other cities than Encinitas. And, you know, I mean, we can be flexible in certain respects in our interpretation of the wording here that, you know, I'm reading, but frankly, no, it's not. So that's all I can say. I won't say more on it. I've said enough.
Steve?
I don't think that all 4 of us are in agreement, but we all seem to be objecting to it at some level or another, whether it's the design aesthetic or whether it's the nonconformity. So I wonder if I might recommend someone suggest a motion to move to the next phase of this.
And let me just, I left public comment open, so I don't know if the applicant would like to respond to the commissioners, and you didn't take time in the beginning, so I want to make sure I'm fair and open with you. If you want to rebut or comment or add to the discussion, you're welcome to at this time. So, and then Kevin, I'll recognize you next.
We're the applicants. I'm Debbie Wagaman. This is Ken Ellison. We appreciate everybody's comments and understand concerns. I think I can speak to the aesthetics of this project. If you look at this project from the street, the house not only conforms to the setback requirements, but it's also stepped down a couple of feet from the street. And then with that, we have landscaping in front of the structure to help soften that front facade and to screen a portion of it. So we thought maybe that would have helped in terms of design aesthetics and fitting into the community, that it's not as imposing as it would be if it was rebuilt at that setback line and if it was not dropped down a couple feet from the grade of the street.
The illustrations that were included in staff's package showed some early renditions of the elevation, but it doesn't take into account the actual landscape plan and how that softscape will actually soften the elevation. And so a lot of the stark elevation, as you put it, as it was mentioned, wouldn't be as evident as it is on just the standard elevation. It would actually be really, blocked, covered, screened in a number of ways. There are layers of landscape that are happening on the front, in the front of the property, and that will affect the general public's perception of the build.
Okay. And then I think, Kevin, you had your hand up and now you don't. Or did you want to hop in?
I was going to make a motion, if it's all right.
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion that we deny based on two findings. One, first, that we're meant to find that there are no additional negative impacts to the character of the neighborhood. And I find that that is not the case due to elements in our design review. I also find that the design will significantly increase the economic life of this nonconformity. I don't see any other way around that. And based on that, we're supposed to make a finding that it will not, and we cannot do so. So based on those two facts, I make a motion that we deny this project.
I will second that motion.
Okay, is there discussion? I want to, let's see, I did want to discuss the significantly increase the economic life. I'm trying to think what my comment there was. I want to make sure that we do not have ordinances that say you can do 50%. I think, Susan, you made a comment earlier about jurisdictions you have been an applicant in that had other laws. And I want to make sure the commission is not assuming we have something equivalent. We have what's in front of us here, and it's really, we're making the decision strictly on whether or not we believe the level of reconstruction will or will not significantly increase the economic life of the nonconformity. So I'm seeing a nod, so that's good. We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? So, and call the question.
All right, Chair Ehlers?
Aye.
Vice Chair Doyle?
Aye.
Commissioner Sharon?
Aye.
There you go.
And Commissioner Dalton.
Aye.
Okay, so the vote passes unanimously to deny the project.
Okay. And I think that's it. Let's move on then to item 8A. Let's see, tonight, item 8A is the Alila Maria Beach Resort Alcohol Service Modification. And this is project multi 004632-2021. It's a public hearing to consider a minor use permit modification and coastal development permit to extend on-site alcohol services, outdoor alcohol service hours to 10 p.m. at the Alila Maru, I know I'm butchering it and I apologize, Beach Resort Deck, Pool Deck. Currently, alcohol service is permitted until 8 p.m. at the outdoor pool deck. The project is located at 2100 North Coast Highway 101 in Leucadia. Are there any disclosures? Let's see, I've got, why don't we start with Steve?
Yeah, I need to recuse myself from this item. Larry Jackal is a client of mine, and I'm providing architectural services on the adjacent Maria Village project. And just to avoid any conflict of interest, I'll need to recuse myself.
Okay. And Kevin?
Okay, I don't have to recuse myself, but I do have some disclosures here. I've actually been in the hotel now 3 times. Sometime last year or earlier, before the hotel opened, I had a tour through the Leucadia Main Street Association. I've also had Lena Thompson before our last meeting when we discussed this project and approved it. She took me on a tour of the Sea Bluff community, and I disclosed that in our prior meeting. And since then, I've actually, my wife and I did our anniversary, and we stayed 3 nights at the Alila Maria Resort. And we had a nice room facing the lagoon. And while we intended to wander around and be a tourist in Leucadia, we pretty much spent the entire 3 days at the hotel. So I have some thoughts on how things went there, and I'll share them with us a little later on. But I have no trouble deliberating fairly here.
Okay, very good. And then I have a disclosure, not a recusal. So after we approved the alcohol permit at our January 21st Planning Commission meeting, and the permit action was completed, I arranged a tour of Sea Bluff with Kristen and Rick Smith. We walked the northern and northeastern boundaries of the project on June 4th, 2021. And this was after the Planning Commission had concluded everything, and before I was aware there might be a future modification request. And I was careful not to communicate an opinion on potential future hearings, or I was really thinking potential future complaints. And since it was a gate-guarded community, and I wanted to personally witness the impact of the pool area on neighbors at approximately 8 p.m. at night, so we toured it around 7:30 in that time frame. And I believe I can make a fair evaluation tonight. And Susan, you're the only one that didn't have a disclosure. Okay. So we'll begin with a staff report presented by Associate Planner Lori Winter.
Thank you very much. Okay. Everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay. All right, the item before you again, this is a minor use permit modification and coastal development permit to extend the approved alcohol service hours at the pool deck. The request is to extend it to 2 p.m. at the Alila Maria Beach Resort. The applicant, Larry Jackal, is with us this evening as well. Property site location, the address is 2100 North Coast Highway 101. It's at the intersection of La Costa Avenue and Coast Highway 101. Zoning is NLVSC zone. It's located in the North 101 Corridor Specific Plan. It's also in the coastal zone. Although the hotel is not shown here on this site, the existing surrounding conditions, I want to point out, residential is located to the south and east. These are the blue dots. The state beach is located to the north and to the west. Those would be the orange yellowish dots there. And there is a vacant property and the railroad tracks located to the east, which are in purple. This is just an image to show you the hotel's overall footprint. The area of focus this evening is the applicant's request, and that's going to be the pool patio deck area. That's the area shown in yellow with the red outline. This is a closer area of the pool area. So the applicant is requesting, again, these are to change the hours of alcohol service at their pool patio deck area. They want to extend that for an additional 2 hours. Currently, the hours are approved from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And again, the applicant is requesting to extend those hours an additional 2 to 10 p.m. The applicant had provided the city also a site plan showing the distance from the pool deck area to the nearest properties to the south. You can see here that the closest one is 25 feet. From these are the cabanas here to this property. There's 115 feet to this adjacent property. And then the area here is 140 feet is, this is the fire pit area. Again, the request I was explaining is to extend the alcohol service hours at the pool patio deck from 8 to 10 p.m. I've just highlighted the 8 o'clock. But I just want to note that all other existing approved operational characteristics would remain the same. This would include their type of ABC licenses that are in place, their hours and locations for entertainment, as well as hours of alcohol service hours and locations within the resort. The request, as I said, was to extend alcohol service to 10 p.m. This would be consistent with all the other hours of regarding the outdoor service areas at the resort, which are until 10 p.m. In addition, the request is consistent with prior approvals throughout the city. For example, the Portofino Hotel, this project was approved with outdoor alcohol service hours from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Locations were included with a rooftop deck, second level patio decks, fire pit area, other common outdoor areas. I've included the condition of approval from the resolution below in the screen here. I just wanted to show you that the property abuts a residence to the south and there's residences to the west. Additionally, we also approved the public priority house in Locadia. This was approved with an outdoor alcohol service hours from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. This was an existing establishment that requested to modify their existing use permit to construct a new outdoor dining patio with alcohol service at the rear of the property. Again, I also included the condition of approval for the project, which is shown below. And I provided 2 images to show the distance to the adjacent residence to the left. Right here, again, this is the whole pad use of umbrellas, the patio area, which I think is this entire area. To fulfill the CPP process, the virtual public outreach meeting was conducted on May 11th, 2021. 3 members of the public attended the meeting in addition to the applicant. Along with appreciation being expressed, a variety of comments were received. Questions were related to hotel access, music, hours, and noise. Overall, the 3 that attended the meeting did not have any concerns regarding the applicant's request. And I would like to note that to date, staff has received 11 public comments on the project, and which have been forwarded to the Planning Commission. 7 are in support for the project, and 4 were in opposition. The project is exempt from CEQA per section 5301. The proposed project does not involve any expansion beyond the existing permitted uses and meets the exemption criteria. The minor use permit modification will authorize alcohol service until 10 p.m. at the pool deck patio. The proposal has been reviewed by the Sheriff's Department, and they have not identified any concerns with the proposed request. Therefore, staff recommends the Planning Commission approve item 8A. Findings can be made to approve the project subject to the conditions of approval outlined in the draft resolution. And that concludes staff's presentation. Both staff and the applicant are available for any questions you may have.
Okay, I want to do just a little point or little housekeeping first. Since we have 1 recusal and 1 vacancy, we are down to 3 commissioners. So any action, whether it be approval, denial, or continuance, would require, per our bylaws, a unanimous decision. And I think it is, I don't know if it's customary or what, many times we have offered to the applicant to continue to a future meeting if they would like to. And I want to give the applicant that opportunity today, at which time we would have 4, when we get the new commissioner from Leucadia, we would have 4 and you would only need 3. So it's not a simple majority to approve an action tonight. And actually, according to our bylaws, it's 3 out of 3 have to approve approval or denial or even a continuance. So I think I'm in line, Lori and Anna, in asking that question, correct?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Larry, I just want to give you the opportunity to think about it. If you want to continue and do the hearing later, we can do that, but it's your choice at this point.
Oh, I appreciate that. I'm very confident that all 3 of you will find in favor of it. So I'm okay with moving forward.
Okay, very good. So with that, do we have any questions of clarification for staff from the commission? I had a couple of, Susan and Kevin, you don't have any. Let's see, let me make sure I've got my notes out here.
Go for it, Bruce.
Yeah, the outdoor music cutoff in the current approval, what time does outdoor music get cut off?
The hours for entertainment is allowed on the pool deck specifically, Bruce, noon to 8 p.m.
8 p.m.
That would
okay.
not change.
Okay, so we're not, yeah, okay, good. And I was trying to understand the what changed from the original hearing. So we made a fact-based determination at that meeting. What new information is there? Is there an update to the noise study, or what changed?
I don't have any changes that were submitted. The applicant has just come in to request a modification. This was their original request, was to have this area at 10 p.m., which was consistent with other properties, other projects that have come in through the city as far as alcohol service.
Okay, so we're re-looking at essentially the very same application and almost all the same conditions. I think there was one additional condition I saw in there, and I was trying to understand how that worked. I think it's SCA 1 on page 15, and it talks about 100 foot that the speakers. Can you help me understand what is meant in SCA 1? Because I think that's different from last time and in addition to last time, according to the wording of the resolution.
That's correct. So just to update you, just on the original condition, that one was specific to PA systems and speakers associated with outdoor entertainment events shall not directly face on-site hotel rooms or off-site residences located adjacent to the south of the project site. So we were at the time, we didn't give a specific distance. We just said that the PA systems and speakers wouldn't face there. This time around, we've actually given a distance. We've said the source of any amplified entertainment noise. So that's not just PA systems or speakers, that's just any amplified entertainment noise shall not be closer than 100 feet from that property line.
Okay, and about where does that put it on the pool area? So my assumption is that's gonna preclude any speakers in most of the pool area, except maybe right up by the fire pits.
I wanted to show you, right? I had an image that maybe gives you an idea. If you don't understand this, right from this point, the furthest edge of the fire pit to a residence is 140 feet. So I'm not sure. And again, so this is amplified. So I think they would still be able to do entertainment that wasn't necessarily amplified with speakers or PA systems. So.
Okay, but if I look at using your numbers there, 140 feet minus the approximately 25 feet that you have down there also gives you 115 feet. So really about 15 feet from the northern terminus of that 140 foot arrow, which and looking at Google Maps, and it came out with the same numbers. It runs roughly through the middle of the fire pit. So parallel, of course, to the southern property line. So you're saying that the way it's written right now, there'd be no speakers anywhere down there. So, but yet the application, which is unchanged, shows live music both almost at by the pool at the southern corner, and another location allowed up still within the 100 feet, but on the main deck area there of the pool. So to me, the application looks like it's inconsistent with that SCA1.
Actually, it's not, Bruce. So there's still the applicant is still permitted to have amplified music from noon until 8 p.m. So that's allowed under the existing use permit. Where the request is now we're talking from 8 p.m. to 10. And we're saying from 8 p.m. to 10, if you were to authorize them to have alcohol service, we're saying that there also would not be any source of amplified entertainment noise. So we already have it stated that you can't go beyond 8 p.m. for entertainment. This request though is for alcohol service. So if there was any type of, I don't know, amplified entertainment noise, Scott Rubeck wanted to make sure that we were covered between those hours.
So, okay. So it wasn't clear to me that SCA1 only applied, let's say 8 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Because that's part of this request. This request is specific to just extending the hours an additional 2 to 10 p.m.
Okay. Okay, so I think I now understand that better. Then the next area would be the general plan, and in this case, the North Coast 101 specific plan and the noise. I don't know if it's called noise element or whatever. I'm trying to understand, and I didn't see it mentioned in the staff report, policy 1.1. I don't know how best to vector you to that other than to bring it up. And it specifically talks about performance standards adjacent to residential areas. And I'll read it so we all have it. New commercial construction adjacent to residential areas should not increase noise levels in a residential area by more than 3 dB. And that's L, I can't quite read it here, but it's basically the LEQ, which is used there, or create noise impacts which would increase noise levels more than LEQ of 60 dB at the boundary of the nearest residential area. And so I'm concerned that two things, well, I want to ask, we didn't address this in the noise report or in the application. Is it not applicable? Is that what I'm understanding, or?
That's a good question. I'm not sure at this point. I think we're still relying on the original noise study that was provided.
Right. So, okay.
What policy in the North 101 corridor specific plan? You said policy 1.1 in which chapter?
Yeah, it's in 9.7 noise. And it's basically, it pulls the general plan noise element and replicates those policies in the specific plan. So I chose to go to the specific plan because that's what's applicable here. I just wanted to understand if I may be missing something, but I wanted to understand what. And we can move on. If you want to pull it up, you can. Because we'll obviously have more discussion about it, because I'll ask some more questions. I want to ask questions about the noise study in particular. So
yeah, and just to clarify, there's no new noise being proposed that was different from the prior project.
Understood. Yeah, but it's a related, just like outdoor patios and alcohol, people can get boisterous. It's an additive risk or an additive component to potential future noise. Yeah, that's exactly it. So policy 1.1A, I think that is new commercial construction immediately adjacent or adjacent to residential areas.
Right.
So I think this applies, correct?
Yes. So there would be no change with the hours of operation. The noise would be the if the capacity doesn't change or anything like that. So that information wasn't modified because none of those parameters were changed. It was simply the hours.
Okay. So that's my questions of clarification. Kevin or Susan, do you have any other questions?
I think I'll wait for deliberation.
I'll wait for deliberation also.
Okay. So we'll now open the public comment. And does the applicant wish to address the commission?
I do. I actually have a few words, and then our general manager of the resort is on with me today, Ben Thiele, and he would go after me if that's okay with you.
That is fine.
Great. I'm sharing my screen right now. I have a little bit of a presentation. Can you see that?
Yep.
Great. All right. Well, thank you for meeting with us again today. Like you said, we were here 8 months ago. January 21st was our last meeting. Went 3 hours and 40 minutes. We were the only agenda item, and we talked about every little square inch of this resort and what we could do with the hours in each spot, which I think is what became exhaustive to everybody, and why there may have been some miscommunication or maybe some things were decided upon that you asked why we're back. I think maybe we might have missed this one in the realm of everything. We were trying desperately to finish the final touches of the resort and get the final sign-offs so that we could open. And what we needed to have the alcohol license in order to open the resort. We couldn't imagine opening without it. So what we did when we came in the first time was we asked for what we thought, we did not ask for pie in the sky and figured we would settle on something less. We were asking for what we thought were very reasonable hours at every spot in the resort. I listened that night, as you guys discussed your reasons for reducing each of the venues' requested hours. And I just felt like it was my fault that I didn't do a very good job of explaining what type of resort this was to all of you. It sounded like there was fear that we were going to be quite a bit wilder and really a fear of the reality of what kind of resort this is. It felt like perception was the reality of that day. And while, we weren't thrilled about a lot of the changes to our requests in the resort, the one area that really was difficult for us was this, and probably was the biggest misperception, was the decision about the hours of alcohol service at the pool. I've gone back and watched that last report, the last planning commission meeting 3 times, and I've watched the section about the pool 15 times. And as you go back through there, all the talk was about 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock was the time that we would cut off alcohol. Indoors, we would be, we talked about 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock and then 10 o'clock, but it was always 10 o'clock. And Commissioner Sherrod and Commissioner Doyle, during that meeting, actually at different times, both commented kind of very similar fashion and said, you can imagine people coming from a very long way away and arrive at the hotel, and they get there at 7 o'clock at night or whatever it is, and they unpack their bags, and they want to go down, it's 9 o'clock, and they want to go down and just have a drink at the fire pit, a glass of wine, and sit and listen to the ocean. And everything was moving in that direction. And all of a sudden there was a comment about it was a question for Roy, and then there was a comment about 8 o'clock p.m. at the pool, a cutoff of the hours, and literally within 15 seconds, everybody said, okay, well, 8 o'clock, I guess that sounds fine. And then we went on to the next topic. Nobody asked me, Larry, how do you feel about 8 o'clock at the pool? Or there was just no discussion about it at all. And so I understand why that happened, and I understand how it happened. But the problem for us is we can work with all the other hours that were adjusted, but this one is a really important decision for us that significantly affects the guest experience at the resort. Going to a beach resort, not being able to have a cocktail by the fire pit just doesn't sit well with us. So the reason we're back here today is to really just talk about that pool deck and really ask for these extra 2 hours. And we think that maybe the decision was made just with misperceptions at the time. And I hope now that you've seen the resort, you've spent time there, you've walked over to Sea Bluff, you'll understand that what we're asking for is not crazy. We're not asking for an overhaul of all of the entire resort, and we're not asking for 1 minute of extra live entertainment or extra noise anywhere in the resort. All we're asking for is a couple of hours to watch the sunset, sit and have a drink before you go to the dinner, whatever it may be, and just use those extra 2 hours at the hotel. We're a classy resort. I think you've seen that now, and we're holding ourselves to a very high standard. We want every guest to have an amazing experience, and as you can imagine, it's a balancing act. We want our guests to be able to enjoy the dining experience, the pool experience, and we also want to make sure that everybody has quiet enjoyment at the resort. And so, all the patrons of the resort have the obligation to respect each other. And that's part of the anytime you go to any resort, you know that. But our management team polices that at all levels. We have 25 rooms that are immediately adjacent to the pool area. They're with 5 feet to 12 feet away from the pool area. We have another 12 rooms that are a little bit further away, so maybe 30, 40 feet away or 50 feet away, maybe 70 feet away. But they're all in this area. And every single one of them these are the west-facing rooms. They're incredibly high priced. They're the highest priced rooms in the resort. So you can imagine the sensitivity that we have of the people that come here and pay that money to be at the resort. We can't upset them by being too loud. That's the balancing act that the management team needs to work with on a daily basis. So we feel incredibly comfortable that telling any of our guests that, we close everything down at 10 p.m. 10 p.m. is time for people to go indoors or go to sleep. But we don't want people out there outside bothering any of our guests after 10 p.m. And so, in my neighborhood, I feel the same way. I don't want my neighbors being loud after 10 p.m. It just seems like 10 p.m. is always the time that we all talk about of not disturbing people's quiet enjoyment. And it seems like everybody's okay with that everywhere we go. I don't really think much noise is going to be made by people having a glass of wine or a cocktail and roasting marshmallows or, sitting at our fire pit there. I'll just scroll here. So, like the staff said, the rest of the establishments in Encinitas and in the surrounding areas have a minimum of a 10 p.m. time to cut off for alcohol outdoors. We really don't know why we're being held to more stringent requirements. The Cape Ray has the ability to stay open until 2 a.m. And don't get me wrong, I know this isn't Leucadia, this isn't Encinitas, so I'm sensitive to that. But in speaking to all the GMs at all of these resorts, the common theme was, yeah, we have these hours that we're allowed to be open till, but we can't upset our guests. So we will cut these off so that we don't upset the guests. We feel the exact same way. The Cape Ray, like I said, can be open till 2 a.m., but they usually stop at 10 or 11 so that the guests can be satisfied. La Berge Del Mar, 10 p.m. Seabird, the new resort in Oceanside, can be open until 1:30 a.m. And these are near other residences as well. But they said that the guests are the most important, so they make sure that if there are people who are bothered by it, they close it down. And the Portofino, as you know, in Encinitas is also 10 p.m. just down the street from us. And Priority Public House, as I saw in the staff report, has residences 5-10 feet away from them. What makes us unique is that we have this Sea Bluff community right next door to us, 250 homes, of which 8 of those homes are direct neighbors of ours. As you can see on here, it's a very, this is the large Sea Bluff community. These are the homes that have been, that we would consider our direct neighbors. Some of them are not happy with us that we built the resort and their views have been taken away. And so sometimes we feel like they have a little bit of a bone to pick with us about that. It's a very, very small minority of folks at the Sea Bluff community that oppose any increase at our pool. As a matter of fact, I believe a large majority of the people love everything we do over there. There's only one residence right here, and you can see in our picture before, is the Hicks family. They're the only family that is really truly adjacent or would potentially be affected by anything that goes on our pool deck. And you know, I've visited them numerous times. I've sat on their deck. I've listened. I've made sure we discussed early on keeping the speakers away from them. And frankly, it's very loud at the edge of the bluff, and you know where our pool is, with wind noise and ocean noise and waves, and you know it drowns out much of anything that goes on there. The Smith family that you met with when you toured through are particularly unhappy that we built the resort and lost their view. They have absolutely they can't see our fire pit from where they are. They're 115 feet away from where we are, from the closest point at our pool. And you know, the other people who have mentioned issues at the property, including the Smiths, don't live in the Sea Bluff community. They rent their homes to other people in the community. Elena Thompson, who is a opponent of everything we do over there, is same thing, doesn't live there, but continues to talk about the quiet enjoyment of the people at Sea Bluff. And the Smiths, you know, like I said, it's their renters that live there, and their renters deserve to have the quiet enjoyment as well. But it's something that we don't even think that they can hear when they're there. Bruce, is actually, when you spoke at the last meeting, you were commenting that based on the decibel levels, for every 50 feet, and I'm not up to speed on it, the same, you know, the kind of the same as you had suggested there, but for every 50 feet away you are from the noise, the decibel level gets reduced in half. And so, you know, if the Smith home is 100 feet away, that means they're getting 25% of the noise that our hotel guests are getting, and being so close to the pool. So if our hotel guests are not upset, then somebody getting 25% of that noise doesn't seem like they ought to be upset about that either. These are some views. The one on the left, the first one is from the Hicks home. You can see the distance to the fire pit. The next one is of our fire pit here, where we even have the plexiglass up all over the fire pit, except for the opening for walking. And this is the Hicks home in the background there, 140 feet away from the fire pits. So with all this said, all we're trying to do here today is ask you for, oh, I'm sorry, let me show you this real quick. These are our rooms that are closest to the pool, and you've all seen them having been there. But if these people right here aren't bothered by the noise, then the Smiths, who are, you know, 115 feet behind them, it would seem like we'd have to bother our guests before we were bothering them, I would think. This isn't Cabo Wabo. This isn't a wild, crazy resort. This is a very classy, upscale resort where we're not talking about wild parties. We're talking about people having a drink and enjoying the pool deck and the ocean sounds. We have to police our own people, and you know, all we're asking for is that we get the couple extra hours to be able to enjoy the deck and let our guests enjoy the experience. Appreciate you listening here today, and if it's okay, I'd like Ben to come on and chat for a minute.
Yeah, you got a few more minutes. Go ahead, Ben.
Evening, everybody. Really excited to see everybody tonight. Thanks for giving me just the opportunity to echo, you know, what Larry has said. You know, we're a special brand one that does our absolute best to create a serene and zen-like experience for all of our guests. That's from the arrival experience all the way out to the pool, as well as the community. I understand the displacement in terms of the bluff with the construction, and everything that's going on around the property, our partnerships with the community, the locals, our signature restaurant. Our goal is to integrate with the community as much as possible. And so the last thing that I would want to do as an operator, something that I've been doing for now 15, almost 20 years in this industry, and in a lot of different settings, downtown urban, coastal beach resorts, small resorts in Santa Barbara. The last thing we want to do is disrupt our community and our locals. And so when I see a pool deck like this, I have the same concerns as the community. How do we ensure that we can still program this space for enjoyment for those that are facing the ocean in their guest rooms, for those that want a cocktail or a glass of champagne, watch the sunset go down and the fire pits come on, especially during that summertime when we have the best weather. But how do we accomplish that without getting in the way of our neighbors and disrupting their wonderful nights where they're having champagne on their decks, enjoying the view as well. And I think the biggest point here is, Larry brought it up, we have all of those rooms, people paying upwards of $1,000 a night. And it's my goal, right? It's my job first and foremost to make sure that our guests have that wonderful experience and have that Zen-like and serene programming. And so if I can keep that intact, which has been extremely successful, and we've had 4 or 5 weddings, actually 5 weddings out there already, out on the bluff, just in terms of ceremony. We've had some small, very, very small social gatherings out there as well. And I've had no complaints with those oceanfront rooms in terms of disruption, which tells me I'm doing my job, number one, for our guests. And if we're not getting any disruption for those oceanfront rooms, it means that those decibel levels aren't near what they need to be to disrupt anybody else in that Sea Bluff community. I'm here to answer any type of questions that you may have. I'm here to support Larry in this process. I'm new to this planning commission and a new face for everybody here, but I want to let you know that if there ever is an issue that does arise, we'll take care of it right away. If it's anything that does disrupt the community, that's what I'm here for, right? I'm here to make sure everybody's comfortable inside our 4 walls and immediately around us. And so I asked for an equitable decision tonight. You take into consideration some of the other properties up and down the coast, and allow us the opportunity to program that space for a nightcap, for a nice relaxing space to be for our guests, and not keep us at a competitive disadvantage for the rest of the coastline here. Thank you for your time. Nice to meet everybody. I do recognize a few familiar faces. Thanks for coming by. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to deliberation.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, do we have public comment, Dina?
We do. We have 3 speakers.
Okay.
All right. Our first speaker is Dolores Welty. She's not there. Oh, Dolores did not. So next we have Brian Zender.
Go ahead,
I've
Brian.
unmuted myself. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for hearing me this evening. I am here just so that we can represent the balanced views of this in the community. I certainly respect that there are definitely different opinions on this. I know that as a resident of Sea Bluff and former president of Sea Bluff until very recently, 6 weeks ago. I'm a former resident because I recently received an offer from someone that really wanted our home, and it was one I couldn't refuse. My wife and I's intention is to continue to live in northern Leucadia. I believe that this actually helped our property value in terms of this level of property and of hotel being a neighbor. I had a chance and an opportunity over the last several years to work with the developer, both prior to and after opening. Found during that time that it was a very collaborative and neighborly, I would describe it as, interactions that we had on multiple occasions regarding things that pertain to, our community here and our residents, and how the hotel impact could be minimized. So we worked through a lot of different contributions and so forth to Seabluff, and we appreciated that. But more importantly, I also consider the operator, Alila, and what I know about them. It's a luxury boutique hotel collection. This is not someone, as was said earlier, out there selling $2 beers on a Sunday afternoon or Sunday late into the night. It's a high-end resort. It's a relaxed luxury, I would call it, and one certainly that the guests there and the clientele would respect one another and respect their neighbors as well, I believe. And the operators, more importantly, as has been stated, are responsible for that also. There's an expectation of service at a resort like this, and I think it should be provided. And I think, too, that a reasonable level of consistency should be applied to this versus other properties. As mentioned, there are places within 2 miles in either direction, many of them actually, operating well past 10 p.m. in close proximity to neighbors. And so the original request till 10 p.m. is one, from my point of view, that just seems reasonable. I'd also consider the record so far and any noise complaints since the opening and the events that have been held there. To my knowledge, there have not been any. So although this is, business, this is business to compete. Hopefully this hotel for Leucadia, for Encinitas, remains competitive, remains open. They need to be successful to do that, and they need to have repeat clientele in order to be successful long term. That concludes my comments. So thank you for hearing from me, and interested to hear the balance of the debate.
Okay. Next.
All right, our final speaker is John Hicks.
Yes, good evening. Good evening.
Go ahead.
As previously mentioned, there's 250 units here in Seabluff. I've owned property here since the mid 80s. Out of the 258 have been directly affected, and 7 of those have lost their view. So obviously they have a negative feeling towards the hotel. The 8th one is my property. As Larry has mentioned, I overlook the pool. I could tell you how many people are sitting around the pool right now. Bruce, you mentioned that the last decision was a fact-based decision on the 8 o'clock shut-off time. Basically, I'm sitting here right now. I have absolutely no problem with noise. I've never, they've called me, they said, are you having any problems with the wedding? I said, absolutely not. So if the fact, I'm not sure what the facts were, but I'm the one sitting right next to the pool and there is no noise. So if you base it on someone who is 115 feet behind me, who can't see the pool, who I can assure you can hear no noise, even though they don't live there, I have absolutely no problem extending the time from 8 to 10, because it's not you also get a lot of white noise from the ocean, which a lot of people don't realize. It takes out all the background smaller noises that you might hear. And other than a wedding on the weekend where I can hear some music, which is certainly not objectionable, there's absolutely no problem at all. The hotel has leaned over backwards to be a good neighbor, and they've called me, do we have any problems? And I have absolutely no problems with their operation or how they run this patio area and the fire pit. So I would highly recommend going from 8 to 10, because it doesn't really make any difference. They'll be sitting in the fire pit. That's all I have.
Okay. Can I ask you a question, John?
Sure.
As long as we got you, and I really appreciate you speaking up and giving us direct testimony about this. You said weddings on the weekends and music. Is that before? That's before 8 o'clock, of course.
Yeah, it's noon. It's usually around 4 to 5. They have the ceremony right there where the public access is. And I don't know whether they need the approval from the city to have that ceremony or not. It doesn't really matter. It's actually very nice. I open the windows so I can hear the speakers and the bride and groom, etc. But other than that, they have the ceremony, then they walk over to they leave the area and walk over to the ballroom. So there's no grand partying and carrying on right in this particular area. They just have the ceremony because it lends itself. And then they move to the ballroom, which is on the north end of the hotel.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're quite welcome.
That concludes our public speakers.
Okay. And Larry or Ben, did you want to short any comments on the public comments so far? I'm probably not, given.
No, the only thing I did want to add that I realized I hadn't mentioned was, you know, it is interesting at the Seabluff community, there are no restrictions on hours of operation. You know, they have 50 homes of the 250 that are rental homes, short-term and long-term. And they don't, it's not even too, you know, the rule there is if you're being bothered, call the sheriff. And, you know, so at our resort, we have a GM here that if anybody had any issue with anything, our GM's on site or our assistant GM's on site, and we're there to answer any problem. No one needs to call the sheriff. I don't think there'd ever be one, but if there ever is, we're there to be good neighbors versus, you know, you look at some of these communities that don't have any policing really, which I'm not knocking them. I love the Seabluff community and I love most of the people I've met there. But you know, without the policing, I think they end up with issues, you know, with short-term renters. They're, you know, going crazy at night. You know, we ought to be more concerned with the noise from there than they are from us, but, you know.
Okay. Okay, good. Well, we'll close the public comments now. And does staff wish to comment on any of the testimony?
No further comments, thank you.
Okay, so now we'll move on to commission deliberation. Kevin or Susan?
I'll give a go if it's okay. I'll tell you, I remember this meeting vividly, and I've actually referred back to this several times. I feel we got a little bit into micromanagement territory. You know, I'm just looking at the interior. We had the ballroom can stay up until 1, but the private dining room right next door where the bride's going to hang out, it's got to stop at 12. After this, I believe we did a steakhouse restaurant down in Cardiff, and there they had another laundry list of unusual hours, opening and closing, stopping music here, and we actually kind of overruled them and gave them more than they wanted to, because we did want to cut them off at 10 on the outside and we wanted them open at a certain time on the inside. I think it was midnight for that restaurant. It was a different type of place, but still it was simple. It was easily enforceable. I think the laundry list that we've given them here is, you know, I'd almost be happy to go back and readdress the indoor alcohol service hours just to make them simpler. But I spent 3 days there. My wife and I spent the bulk of the trip sitting on those loungers at the pool deck. And I do see this space as kind of self-regulating. I mean, those rooms cost, once TOT's added in, are $1,000. So it's like, if I spend $1,000 a night, and I have, but, you know, had people been outside making a big fuss and causing me grief, I would have complained, and I would have expected a Hyatt property to have addressed that issue ASAP. So I think any noise that happens here is going to be pretty much self-regulating. And I feel it is literally the only, staff will correct me if I'm wrong, but I could not find a single other restaurant or any outdoor dining that limited alcohol to 8 o'clock. I'm sure maybe there is someone, but I couldn't find him. So I would be totally cool with extending these hours to 8 to 10, knowing that any noise concerns will be addressed under our existing rules. And I'm not going to go into the indoor service hours, even though it's tempting. It's here in front of me. But that's my initial comments. I may have more to say.
Susan?
Yes, I'm looking at page 76 and 77 of the staff report, and I'm finding some new information that I didn't see in January. And it looks to me like we're holding this hotel to a tougher standard than the surrounding residences. The surrounding residences can make noise up until 10 p.m., but we're telling the hotel it cannot. And so that seems a bit unfair to me. Now that I see it laid out this way in the staff report, I didn't notice this in a prior staff report. Maybe it was, but I didn't see this table to City of Encinitas exterior noise limits. So I think it's a bit unfair if we say, okay, residents, go ahead and have your mariachi birthday party at, you can go up to 55 decibels or whatever, but no, until 10 p.m. And then tell the hotel, no, you cannot, because they're right next to that residential area. So I'm feeling like this is new information I'm seeing. And I'm inclined to agree with Commissioner Doyle. I think that the patio area being adjacent to rooms would mean that it would be within the hospitalities industry best interest to keep those high pricey guests happy and keep their sound down. But I also see that, residents are allowed to make noise until our residential zones. And I also don't know any other establishments that cut off at 8. So I'm inclined to concur with Commissioner Doyle.
Okay. And I want to be clear that that is the municipal code. We're not debating whether we're changing the municipal code. The municipal code currently has the limits you see in that table. So I don't, you may think it's unfair, but it is the code. So, be careful. We have to abide by that. I wanted to start out, Larry, I think hopefully you misquoted me when you said 50% at 50 feet. I used to be VP of engineering for a speaker company, and if I messed up sound propagation laws, the physical laws of nature, I'm really in trouble.
I may have. I apologize if I did. I have to go back and look at that.
Half the sound pressure level at doubling of the distance. And the good news is what I thought agrees with the what's said in the report. So just so
maybe it was 100
nobody
feet per half or something. I don't know.
Just so nobody comes back and says, well, the guy doesn't even know what he's talking about.
All right, I'm sorry.
One of the important concepts I'm always concerned about is our approval runs with the land. And most of the justification I've heard tonight has been what great operators, and I do believe you'll be great operators, and I think that does buy you something, but it's not everything. So part of the job of the planning department and the planning commission is to make sure we put a framework in place that future owners, future operators, business models shift. We need to make sure whatever we do prevents most of the problems, maybe not all the problems, but most of the problems systemically. So that's my concern, and that's where I'm coming at this. So if I'm skeptical and I want to, I really, the night we had this hearing in January, I had not visited, and I know I didn't really understand the conditions there, and it's interesting. I thought Mr. Hicks hit my perception right on the nose. I was actually very surprised. I was surprised by how loud the white noise from the ocean, but it was that close, and it would have been nice if the rest of the commissioners could be out there too. I was also surprised how quiet, and I couldn't quite hear. I could hear music, but it was muffled and distant. And I was even closer to the property line than Mr. Hicks's windows and whatnot. So, and I toured the entire place, and I was very careful not to express a positive or negative opinion either way. But I did feel it was potentially less of a problem than I thought when I made the decision originally. So I do agree with some of the comments tonight. On the other side, the comparison to the Portofino, I don't think is quite apples to apples. This is an outdoor pool and gathering area, event area immediately adjacent to a handful of houses, certainly Mr. Hicks being the closest. Portofino, the pool is in the very front of the, on the 101 frontage. What's immediately across 101, a very large noisy train goes by. So, you know, we were very careful when we had the Portofino hearing to talk about that, and that it was basically, there's a lot of hotel rooms stacked behind that before you get to the residential. So I don't think in the city of Encinitas that's a fair comparison. And this is one that's immediately adjacent to residential. And then the last thing is I'm very concerned about putting commercial in immediately adjacent to I shouldn't say commercial, I say commercial with alcohol in this case, immediately adjacent to residential. And so again, I'm skeptical. I want to make sure that we're not producing future problems. And that's where I think I landed at the 8 o'clock, that I was probably the proponent of that during the original meeting. And, you know, I think I would have liked to have gone a year before having this meeting. So 7.5 months, not quite there. You know, I don't know, I'm still on the fence. I have to admit I'm on the fence. So, but that's where I'm thinking right now. I really would like to know more from staff on policy 1.1 and the measuring the current conditions, the LEQ as it's called, because there's some very specific performance criteria, which I think is good because that also runs with the land. And my concern with the noise study, the way it was done, is it was basically 2 measurements for the LEQ, it's called, and they were measured at 9:30 and 10 o'clock approximately in 10-minute segments. And the reason I wanted to go out there at 7:30 at night, and I didn't even know there was going to be a revisit here. I kind of figured there might be future complaints, but I wanted to just go hear it for myself. And I would have preferred a noise study that looked at it at 8 o'clock at night, just to get the ambient conditions, less traffic out there, and it could be a little quieter. And it might even show that the ocean really dominates the sound there. I don't know. So that's where I'm at right now. I don't know, Kevin or Susan, who had their hand up first? Go ahead, Kevin, and then we'll go to Susan, and I'll do it the other way next time.
Okay, fair enough. I had 2 issues. One, you mentioned the approvals run with the land, and I know that's something we always look at. I want to point out that this piece of land is pretty much a luxury resort hotel forever. The land itself has been altered in a way that will never be unaltered. It will always be what it is. No one's going to turn this into a nightclub with 240 hotel rooms. It's a luxury resort. Hyatt, I think, is the backer behind Alila Maria. I mean, it could be Omni, it could be, you know, it's a luxury resort. Even if it changes hands, it's going to stay pretty much what it is. I think that ship has left. Susan, I wanted to really thank you for pulling up page 76, because, you know, there I see limited visitors serving commercial, 7 to 10. I really do believe this is a self-regulating situation. The other thing that I noticed, we were there in May, so the sun did set a little before 8. And as soon as the sun goes down, if you live here in this region, you know, the sun goes down, it gets chilly. That 10 minutes as the sun's setting, it's getting colder and colder and colder until by the time it's down, you're either inside or you're scurrying over to that glass-lined fire pit, which was quite cozy. And when you're in there, it's true. The ambient noise when you're outside, it's almost hard to have a conversation, just depending on what the ocean's doing. Mm-hmm. So when you're in that fire pit, it's like the ocean sounds die. I think it's I just don't see this as a problem. I feel I remember the initial conversation we were talking about. Somebody was saying, well, we should end it at dusk, and I think I was the one who brought up the conversation. Is what the heck is dusk? Define dusk. I know there probably is one, but we want simple things if we want something to be enforceable. And we have many noise ordinances in place. We have procedures in place to handle this. And I just don't see any logical reason to single out the Lila Maria Resort for an 8 o'clock shutdown when basically the residences throughout the thing, it's 10 o'clock. I mean, I'm a person, I live in the world, and it's like 10 o'clock, you better shut your darn speaker off. And if I start calling the police to complain at 8, the police are probably not going to come out and yell at my neighbors. They'll wait till 10.
Yeah.
So
when you said shut your speaker off, I think you meant shut down alcohol service.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm thinking, I was alluding to me being a homeowner and making noise in my backyard. They're going to come and yell at me at 10. My neighbors may call the police at 10 if I'm not on good terms with them. But if they call at 8, it's not going to be taken seriously. And I don't think 8 is a serious time. I think we erred basically when we did this first time around.
Susan?
And that's my stance.
Susan?
Done.
I just want to check in about the standard conditions would still apply, correct? That for page 24 of the staff report, still within 2 years, if it's, we want to know that there's good faith demonstrated, and it could come back with a hearing if there is not, correct? So we still would have that as a safety check sort of thing, that the city may require a notice public hearing if, they want to, but if there's been good faith and everything's cool, then no, then it's fine. But we still have that, right? That standard condition will still apply. I guess that's a staff question.
Sure. Yeah. So the condition that you are referring to is actually the expiration of the permit itself. But I think that you are looking more towards the condition that refers you to use permits being able to be remanded back to the planning commission, and you can modify a use permit at any time if the planning commission deems that it's necessary. So that's still standard.
So that's a good thing, because it's a conditioned use. It's a conditioned use that they're being given.
Yeah, and I can find that one that we're referring to.
Thank you.
So let's see. I want to. Can we possibly pull up SCA 1 on the new conditions? And as I understand it, all the old conditions apply as exists, except it would be the hours that would change for the pool.
Thanks.
Yes, that's correct, and we can pull that up. Give us just one.
Because when I read this, I think it says something different than what the intent was. I think it basically says you can't have any speakers within 100 feet of the southern property line, and I'm gathering we should put during alcohol, or during after 8 p.m. or something like that. But the truth is, I thought we were saying there were no speakers on after 8 p.m. out there in the current approved conditions. So I'm not sure SCA 1 is needed here.
It's confusing. Even if we're going to leave it in, it should be something that we can understand here and now. Try and picture someone 2 years from now who hasn't gone through all this, trying to figure this out, saying, what the, how would we rephrase that? Any concept?
Well, I actually think you don't even need it, because it was covered in the hours of the amplified music.
Yeah.
If this is intended only to be 8 to 10 p.m., then run down to page 23. Let's see, live entertainment, pool patio to 8 p.m. Oh, that's live. And then, we could clarify it that no amplified or PA music is allowed after 8 p.m. I think that's, the applicant has agreed with that.
And I think
seeing a nod,
staff say that was the intent when they did this. Anna, perhaps, or
maybe
Lori.
the live music should include amplified music and PA. just so we're clear. But right now, the way it's written, I think it's confusing, and I think it basically says you can't have any speakers ever within 100 feet of the southern property line, and so I'd like to fix that at a minimum.
Staff will make that change.
And so, go ahead. I think Susan had her hand up first, and then Kevin. So I'm going the other way now.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to lower it.
Okay, Kevin, go ahead.
Hey, so this is for Laura or Anna. What was the actual intent of SCA 1 again? Can you just, because I feel like we're stumbling over this, and I know you had an intent, but I'm just, this had to do with, so if this said, comma, after 8 p.m., would that better sum up what the intent was?
The intent, it came from Scott Rebeth, so I think maybe Scott may have not been clear, thinking that the music, in addition to people being able to sit outside and have a glass of wine, as far as the alcohol service, he may have thought that the music was going to extend also to 10 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And wanted to make sure that there wouldn't be any amplified noise that was within 100 feet of the property line. That's the only thing I think of, because the condition came from Scott Rebeth, so.
Okay.
It wasn't from people, because people were allowed by the fire pit regardless if they had a glass of wine in their hand or not.
So I would propose a change, if we could, that we make it no amplified entertainment noise or PA after 8 p.m. on the outdoor patio area, and leave out the 100-foot, because to me it's almost 100%, but it leaves this little odd section where I don't understand why it's there. So, and just clarify it after 8 p.m. so that it's clear that it only applies there. And that, I think, addresses Scott's concern and doesn't really, in our mind, and I think maybe in the applicant's mind, change the meaning of the original approval.
I would support that.
And Larry, I'll open up public if you want to comment, and just make sure we're in sync with you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. We just want someone to be able to have a glass of wine in the fire pit. You know, the music is not we definitely don't want anybody out there having a rock concert, after 8 p.m. or ever really. But that's great.
But now, just to jump in here to play devil's advocate, if we say there are no amplified noise after 8 p.m., then isn't there little speakers in the fire pit? Wouldn't it be kind of?
Yeah, there are. Is that amplified music? I don't know.
It's an amplified entertainment noise. It sounded like a pretty big catch-all. I mean, I think so. There, I think the 100-foot comment actually does make sense.
I think you're right, because that makes it so that you can be in that enclosed fire pit area where no one can hear anything outside of that, and it's very soft music, but just some background music is all it is. So I think that's right.
How about accept the current fire pit area? Because I honestly, when I looked at Google Maps, that 100-foot went right through the middle of the fire pit.
I think that's great. No problem with that at all.
Okay. You okay with that, Kevin?
So no amplified entertainment noise after 8 p.m. except for in the fire pit till 10 p.m. till alcohol service ends.
Yes.
And staff can clean that up and make that sound right, I think. I would totally be okay with that. And I love, because honestly, I hate conditions that I can't understand. Because if I can't understand them, wait a couple of years and it's somebody else is scratching their heads and wondering what the heck we were doing.
I do appreciate you bringing that up though, Kevin. I hadn't thought about that part, so that's good.
Okay. Susan, you have your hand up?
Yeah, isn't it more about the decibel level that we're concerned about than where the speaker is located? I mean, if the decibel level exceeds the allowed number, then they're in violation. And if it does not, then they are not. So in some ways, the speaker location, if they're at that decibel level, wherever the speaker is, kind of doesn't matter. But I mean, and then as far as the amplified system, wouldn't that be the same thing? Aren't we looking at, if we have a decibel meter and we measure a certain number, and it's in violation, boom, that's the end of that question. I'm confused, Isn't it about decibel level?
It is, but having been on the other side where I've tried to enforce county noise ordinances and get them measured and enforced, it is trying to enforce the decibel limit is a laborious and difficult to prove. If you look at the definition of the LEQ that's defined in here, it's averaged over a specific time period. Well, if you have really loud noise and it goes quiet for a few minutes and really loud and quiet, the really loud will bother people. But when you do an LEQ measurement, it'll average it over there, so you'll get down underneath. So my mind, I kind of like this because the applicant's in agreement. It kind of puts a nice different type of limitation that would cut off amplified recorded music after 8 p.m., which would be a likely source, but it allows everything he wants to do operationally. So again, if we go and this place gets sold in 10 years to a new operator, and they say, hey, we think having a little more of a party atmosphere out there would be good. Wouldn't be Larry, it wouldn't be Ben, it would be you look at Four Seasons in Javiera, that changed hands, right? Several times. And so I'm just trying to get the systemic fixes in place now that the current operator says that's perfect, fits within my model. And I think Scott Verbuff, it was a staff recommendation, so he had a reason to do it. I like keeping it in.
Yeah.
So I will, based on my trip out there and listening and the background noise, and a little less on the wonderful qualifications of Larry and Ben, and I do believe you'll do well, but I'm really looking more systemically. I will support approving 10 p.m. Because we have other means to keep it in line. And I actually really appreciate Mr. Hicks' testimony because he is the front line, and he's got all the windows open there at the right level. And so I think we need unanimous. Anna, do you have your hand up there?
Yes, very quickly. I just wanted to say, Commissioner Sherrod, it was condition use 02, and it says that in the event that any of the conditions of this permit are not satisfied, the Development Services Department shall cause a notice hearing to be set before the authorized agency to determine whether the city of Encinitas should revoke this permit. So I think that's the one you were referring to, that it allows us to come back before the Planning Commission if there are significant issues. That's all.
Okay, so anybody want to make a motion, or is there further discussion?
I'll take a stab at a motion if nobody else does. Let me just pull up I jumped down there. Okay, I'm trying to pull up SCA. Okay, I'm going to make a motion that we approve staff recommendation to extend the dining hour or the alcohol hours on the pool deck till 10 p.m. With the caveat that we are changing the wording of SCA 1 to clarify when and where the amplified entertainment noise, which would be not after 8, with the exception of the fire pit area, which would and amplified entertainment would end at the same time as the alcohol service at 10 p.m. Did that sound like what everyone else remembered?
Yep. I'll second.
Thank you, Susan.
Okay, well, let me make sure, except fire pit area. I have to get my notes down too.
Mm-hmm.
Which would end itself at 10 p.m. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further comment? If not, call the question.
Right, Chair Ehlers,
Aye.
Vice Chair Doyle,
Aye.
and Commissioner Sherrod.
Aye.
Right, the vote passes unanimously, 3 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 recuse.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank
there
you,
one
Ben.
oth-
Thank you, Larry.
Yep.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time.
Thank you.
So let's see. I just got to find my notes here. There we go. So let's see. We have a motion. We're on to future agenda items added by planning commissioner. Are there any agenda items planning commissioners wish to add to future meetings? Oh, wait, and we have Steve back.
Yes. No, nothing to add though.
Okay. And let's see, planning commission reports. Are there any planning commissioner reports? See none. City planner reports. Anna, do we have any reports?
Yes, so one that I had already mentioned, that the August 19th hearing will be virtual. And the next is that on August 10th at 6 p.m. will be the mobility element, also known as circulation element workshop. And that will be virtual as well. It is on the webpage. You do need to register to attend that workshop. And on August 11th, City Council will approve the next planning commissioner, the vacant seat for Leucadia. And the staff report is released. So if the planning commission would like to view that, it is available online as well.
Okay, very good.
What date was that?
August 11th.
Thank you.
And just, I know it's not a planning commission, but the redistricting workshop, is that still on for the 3rd, or did that get canceled for COVID?
I am unaware of that one.
Okay. I guess I'll check the website. Or not, is it August, or did I miss?
August 16th, I've got.
Oh, okay. That I was trying, it was coming up and I couldn't think when it was.
And where it's going to happen is who knows.
Okay. Okay. With that, thanks everybody. The next regularly scheduled meeting is scheduled for August 19th. And this meeting is now adjourned to the regular planning commission meeting of August 19th at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Is considered a model for other jurisdictions and was awarded the prestigious Helen Putnam Award for innovation